4 serving soldiers arrested on suspicion of belonging to a neo-Nazi group. Before it was banned last year, National Action held high-profile demonstrations. The Ministry of Defence says the men have been detained under the Terrorism Act. Also tonight, little Aisha murdered by her mother. The danger signs missed by the authorities. Another huge hurricane hurtles towards the Caribbean and Florida. And Meghan Markle's declaration of love for Prince Harry.
This is the ITV Evening News with Mary Nightingale.
Good evening. 4 serving members of the British Army are tonight under arrest on suspicion of links to a neo-Nazi terror group. The men are alleged to belong to National Action, an extreme right-wing group that was banned by the government last year. They're all being held under the Terrorism Act, and police are searching several properties. National Action has links to the murder of the MP Joe Cox and is Britain's first far-right terror group, as our security editor Rohit Kachru reports.
A demonstration by National Action in Newcastle. But months later, the Home Secretary banned this group. It became not only an extremist organisation, but a terrorist one too.
The battle has come to us. It rages in our towns, our cities.
It used glossy propaganda just like IS or Al-Qaeda. But just like those organisations, membership is banned.
As a despised and persecuted minority.
One of the suspects is being transferred from RAF Akrotiri in Cyprus after being arrested at an army base nearby. The Ministry of Defence said 3 more soldiers were also arrested in the UK. We can confirm that a number of serving members of the army have been arrested under the Terrorism Act for being associated with the prescribed far-right group. These arrests are the consequence of a Home Office police force-led operation supported by the army. Today, ITV News was shown evidence of a separate allegation made to police 9 months ago, claiming an army member was an NA sympathiser. This email was sent to the police in January, a complaint in confidence. It said a known member of NA has joined the army and started basic training. He makes out on his Facebook he wants to join the Rifles with British Army, would prove embarrassing. National Action was outlawed after endorsing the murder of the MP Joe Cox. But months later, an ITV News investigation revealed that former members were still meeting and still celebrating the killing. But today's arrests make this the largest police investigation into Britain's first far-right terror group. 3 of the 4 arrested servicemen are with the Royal Anglian Regiment. The 4th is believed to be with the Royal Electrical and Mechanical Engineers. Now, the MOD say that these allegations don't reflect their values, and the evidence does appear to suggest that no one here was working on a terrorist attack, but simply being a member of this organisation is, of course, a terrorist offence. OK, Rohit Kachru at the Ministry of Defence, thank you. There was an all-too-familiar admission of failure and missed opportunities today over the murder of a little girl at the hands of her mother. A serious case review into the death of 21-month-old Aisha Jane Smith found danger signs were not spotted by social workers, medics or a string of other agencies. As Ben Chapman reports, even warnings from her natural father were ignored.
Aisha Jane Smith was identified as being at risk from the day she was born, but in the weeks before she died, professionals missed vital warning signs. She was killed in her own home by her own mother, Catherine Smith, who is serving a life sentence for murder. But a review published today found social workers had allowed the needs of the mother to overshadow those of her daughter.
The main point for me in this case is that the focus of attention was on the mother and her vulnerability to domestic abuse, and not Aisha Jane.
Her mother was in a volatile relationship with Matthew Rigby, but as it grew more violent, today's report found there was a failure to re-evaluate how Aisha was being cared for. Social workers displayed a lack of professional curiosity and didn't challenge the mother enough. They were inclined to take what she said at face value. It meant the growing risks to Aisha were not fully recognised. But there were warnings. These photographs showing her with a scratched face were given to social workers by her natural father. The report is also critical that he wasn't consulted enough. The director of Derbyshire Children's Services has now apologised to him. The report says her death couldn't have been predicted. Do you accept it could have been prevented?
The report is clear that the death couldn't have been predicted, even having pulled all of the information together in the way that a serious case review does.
There were clear warning signs.
There were opportunities for practice to have been stronger, and there were opportunities with Aisha Jane that weren't taken in the way that we would want them to.
The local hospital trust has also apologised for missing 2 chances to spot signs of abuse. It and the council say they've already learned lessons from Aisha's death, although the report found no endemic failings. Indeed, a meeting to discuss her safety was finally held the day before she was killed. Ben Chapman, ITV News, Burton-upon-Trent.
Russia's President Putin has warned the escalating crisis over North Korea could develop into a global catastrophe. Speaking from China, he said diplomacy, not military action, is the solution. But President Trump says he'll allow Japan and South Korea to buy even more sophisticated military equipment. From Seoul, here's our correspondent, Debbie Edward.
Today, the South Korean Navy practiced its combat strategy. 3 warships conducted a live firing drill aimed at retaliating against a North Korean attack. Attending an economic summit in China, Vladimir Putin warned such military exercises were whipping up war hysteria.
The use of sanctions of any kind in this case is useless and inefficient. The escalation of military hysteria is completely meaningless. This is a road to nowhere and could lead to a global catastrophe.
South Korea has pledged to explore all military options following North Korea's 6th nuclear test. And President Trump has confirmed he will provide the hardware necessary. On Twitter, he said he was allowing Japan and South Korea to buy a substantially increased amount of highly sophisticated equipment from the United States. Seoul would likely be devastated in the event of military conflict, and that's why the government here is now considering bringing US tactical nuclear weapons back to the peninsula. The hydrogen bomb, said to have been inspected by Kim Jong-un at the weekend, has been described by one of his UN diplomats as a gift addressed to the United States.
The US will receive more gift packages from my country as long as it relies on reckless provocations and futile attempts to put pressure on the DPRK.
North Korea has been detected transporting what was thought to be a long-range ballistic weapon. It is no longer a question of if it will launch another missile. It now appears to be a case of when. Debbie Edward, ITV News, Seoul.
Tourists are to be evacuated from parts of Florida over fears that Hurricane Irma could wreak catastrophic damage when she hits later in the week. The superstorm is one of the biggest in history and is currently bearing down on the West Indies with 180-mile-an-hour winds. Irma's developed into a Category 5 storm, the highest possible, even more powerful than Hurricane Harvey, which devastated Houston. Juliet Bremner has the latest.
A satellite image shows Irma building in speed and strength as she approaches land. From the cockpit of Hurricane Hunter aircraft, this is the view for pilots from America's National Oceanic Center as they fly into the storm to try and measure just how destructive she might be. Now a Category 5 hurricane, Irma is due to hit Antigua and the Leeward Islands tonight, moving on to Puerto Rico and reaching Florida by the weekend. Those living on the island of St Martin are stocking up. Water and generators already in short supply as they prepare for the worst storm in 12 years, with winds up to 180 miles per hour and an 11-foot storm surge.
I get in some stuff for the hurricane because the hurricane is coming direct on us. They said that it's coming on us, so then I start to pick up 2 little things what I need.
In Florida, the queues are already building, 3 days before the storm's predicted to make land. Here, they remember the battering they took last year.
We got hit pretty good before, so people are being a little more vigilant, I guess.
This year we decided whether it comes or not, this is stuff we need.
They're planning to sit out Irma, but tourists may not get the choice. One county's issued an emergency evacuation order, telling all visitors they must leave before the hurricane arrives. Juliet Bremner, ITV News.
Well, here to jeers from opposition MPs, the Brexit Secretary, David Davis, told the Commons today he always thought negotiations would be tough, complex and at times confrontational. But his task has become tougher still after the Labour Party confirmed it's to vote against a key Brexit bill later this week. Our political correspondent Carl Dinnan is in Westminster. So, Carl, MPs returned today, but to a pretty familiar battleground, Brexit.
Yes, that's right. This place is buzzing again after its summer slumber, but almost the first thing MPs were talking about was Brexit. David Davis was here giving them an update on negotiations, and it was when he said those negotiations were going quite well that MPs on the opposition benches practically laughed at him. But the bigger problem for the government is that the big EU withdrawal bill comes here on Thursday, and today the shadow cabinet met and decided that unless that bill was radically changed, Labour would vote against it. The problem they have is these so-called Henry VIII clauses, which will allow ministers to change the laws as they go from being EU laws to becoming UK laws. And many in Labour, many in the Conservative Party too, think that the government is asking for far too much power. So here we are, Parliament's just back, and within about a week we could be facing a knife-edge vote on the major central plank of the government's EU strategy.
Carl Dinnan in the Commons, thank you. Still to come on the ITV Evening News, an end to the public sector pay cap, Nicola Sturgeon's plans for Scotland. And wild about Harry, Meghan Markle breaks her silence about her Prince Charming. With those stories and more after the break. Join me then. Hello and welcome back. Aid agencies warn there is a growing humanitarian emergency in Bangladesh as tens of thousands of Rohingya refugees arrive there from neighbouring Myanmar. The ethnic Muslims are fleeing for their lives after an upsurge in violence in Rakhine State, in what used to be known as Burma. Makeshift camps are overflowing and aid is being prevented from getting in. And the situation is getting worse. In just 2 weeks, 123,000 Rohingya, mainly women, children and the elderly, have crossed into Bangladesh. Dan Rivers reports on the escalating crisis.
Half-starved and terrified, it's claimed Rohingya Muslims are being ethnically cleansed from Myanmar, formerly Burma, a country the world once hoped would become a beacon for human rights in Asia. Their road to salvation is hard going, through monsoon floods to neighbouring Bangladesh, this one of the world's most impoverished countries, but here at least they are safe. And this is why they're fleeing. Nationalist militias, some say backed by the Burmese army, have torched dozens of villages, slitting the throats of any Muslims they can get their hands on. This man says the military destroyed everything. After killing some Rohingya, the military burned their houses and shops. Ultra-nationalist Buddhist mobs have surrounded many Muslim Rohingya villages, ethnic tensions stoked, critics say, by the Burmese government itself. And that's what makes this crisis so perplexing, because of the pro-democracy leader simply known as the Lady. Aung San Suu Kyi effectively runs the country after her party won a landslide in the first free vote in a generation 2 years ago. But despite winning the Nobel Peace Prize for years of peaceful resistance against the military junta, she has failed to condemn the violence against Muslims in Burma.
The moral issue here is, as a government, as a Nobel laureate, we are expecting her to say something, at least for the Rohingya community, as a human being, not more than this.
Some are trying to flee by boat, often with deadly consequences. But this is a people left with no choice. As the arson attacks and massacres gather pace, bloodshed some are now labelling a genocide. Dan Rivers, ITV News.
Here's Scotland's First Minister today set out her plans for the coming year, which she described as bold and ambitious. It includes major improvements in education, which Nicola Sturgeon has been criticised over in the past. And she also confirmed plans to lift the public sector pay cap. Here's our reporter, Peter Smith.
Education is what Nicola Sturgeon asked to be judged on. But after 10 years on the SNP's watch, Scottish schools this year recorded their worst ever performance in international league tables. Having enough teachers for the right subjects might seem a basic requirement, but that is a challenge head teachers still face.
It clearly does have an impact when you don't have a full quota of teachers in front of young people all day, every day.
The SNP's report card reads, "Must do better," and Nicola Sturgeon knows it. Today she announced a new programme for government.
A new education bill will deliver the biggest and the most radical change to how our schools are run that we have seen in the lifetime of devolution. It will give head teachers significant new powers, influence and responsibilities.
Scotland will also lift the 1% pay cap for public sector workers from next year. But Nicola Sturgeon didn't say by how much.
As time goes on and the cost of living increases and people find that increasingly more difficult, I think it will hopefully help them if they're going to get some more realistic pay awards.
Notably, there wasn't a single mention of independence today. The surging Scottish Tories will take credit for pressing mute on that and some of the other ideas.
Indeed, given how much the SNP has poached from the Scottish Conservative manifestos over recent months, I'm tempted to suggest that our programme for government should be called Something Borrowed, Something Blue.
Accused of neglecting the day job, today was Nicola Sturgeon's fight back. As she wished, she is being judged on education and whether there's more to the SNP than independence. Peter Smith, ITV News, Glasgow.
Quick look at other news now. The toy maker Lego has announced it's cutting 1,400 jobs worldwide as a result of falling sales and profits. Revenues dropped by £1.8 billion, its first fall in sales in more than a decade. Lego employs more than 18,000 people. 900 of those are based in the UK. And Sir Bruce Forsyth has been laid to rest at a private funeral service which was attended by his close friends and family. The veteran entertainer died last month at the age of 89. And finally tonight, hot on the heels of a new royal baby, could we soon have another royal wedding? Prince Harry's girlfriend, Meghan Markle, has spoken about their relationship in a magazine interview. The American actress said they are in love and this is their time. And as our royal editor Chris Shipp reports, that sparked more speculation that they could be heading for the altar.
Yesterday, it was William's turn to make a family announcement. Today, however, Prince Harry said very little about his own future plans when the brothers attended a community event. The same cannot be said for Harry's girlfriend, Meghan Markle. We've known about the relationship between actress and prince for some time. Harry authorised a strongly worded statement about the US TV star last year, telling newspapers to stop harassing her. Now Miss Markle has revealed in a US magazine quite how serious this royal relationship is. She told Vanity Fair, "We are two people who are really happy and in love. We were very quietly dating for about 6 months before it became news."
I'm Rachel Zane. I'll be giving you your orientation.
Wow, you're pretty. The real-life couple have never staged an official appearance, but Miss Markle's TV series Suits is filmed in Toronto, the city Prince Harry will visit later this month for the Invictus Games. And Meghan Markle has hinted she and Harry will appear together in public soon. I'm sure there will be a time, she says, when we will have to come forward and present ourselves and have stories to tell. But we're happy. Personally, she adds, I love a great love story. Of course, none of this is confirmation of any long-term relationship plans, but it was reason enough today for some royal watchers to start dusting off their wedding hats. Chris Ship, ITV News.
And that is all for now. Raggy Omar's here with news at 10. But from me and all the team, have a great evening. Bye-bye.